It's time for Political Buzz, the television forum to discuss politics and issues of interest for all of Western New York. Now, from the WBBZ television studio at the Eastern Hills Mall, this is Political Buzz.
Hello, everybody. John DeShula with you. We welcome you to WBBZ-TV, your hometown television station. Lots to talk about in the world of politics. We have a very interesting half hour, very informative, very topical. You need to stay right here. Recent political news that longtime New York State Senator George Maziarz has decided that he's not going to seek re-election. We'll find out more about that. We're going to talk a little bit about the Buffalo Bills, the future of the ownership. But first, as I welcome our regular contributor, Steve Pidgeon, attorney from Underberg and Kessler, and prominent Democratic strategist. I wanted to start by asking you, Steve, about a story that was in the Buffalo News as we get into our show today, which is about Steve Casey, a prominent man who is really considered to be the right-hand man for Mayor Byron Brown, leaving to take a position with a developer who's looking to develop the Seneca area, the old Seneca Mall. Well, first of all, let's talk about, in full disclosure, you are working very closely with that organization.
Yes, I'm actually a consultant and a lobbyist for that organization, and I don't think it's any secret to viewers who are politically involved and active that I've been very close with both Steve Casey and Byron Brown for a number of years. And in fact, it was in 1992 when I was working as Clinton's state director, his field director for New York State. Steve Casey was just right out of school, and he was working for the New York State Senate, and he was running a race in Long Island for State Senate. And that's when I first took notice of him. Emily Giske, who's now a very, very prominent lobbyist in Albany, was working with us, and she actually said, "You need to meet this young guy. He really is a freight train on campaign work." So I was impressed, and when Maziello got elected mayor and we were running Anthony Nanula for the Senate, we brought him in to work on that campaign. And then actually when Nanula won, he became the chief of staff for Anthony and Senator Nanula, and then worked there. And that led to when Dave Swartz challenged Dennis Gorski. He moved over to work for Dennis Gorski, and Byron Brown first had met them together on those early races. He was a supporter of Nanula and was running for the county legislature at the time. Then they worked together for Dennis Gorski. After Dennis Gorski lost, Steve became the executive director of the Democratic Party when I was chairman. And we both were working for the state Senate and working with Byron Brown. So it goes way, way back. So I guess a lot of people, shouldn't be surprised. But I guess the surprise is he has done a terrific job as deputy mayor.
Well, many have said he is the mayor. And he's the tough guy.
Well,
and Mayor Brown is the Teflon, and Steve Casey's the guy that is.
First off, Steve Casey wouldn't say it that way, and neither would Byron Brown, because the truth is the mayor is the mayor. Steve Casey has been a tremendous, able right hand and has brought management stability to City Hall, brought accountability to City Hall in a management style perspective, and has been a tremendous advisor. And if things are being done right, I think you see it around presidents, I think you see it around governors, and you see it around successful mayors, that you don't bring the mayor in to say no. So I think in saying that he is the mayor is not fair to Byron Brown, because Byron Brown has been a terrific mayor. And what's happened with Byron Brown's leadership and with Steve Casey working with him as his management implementer, COO almost, chief operating officer, as you've seen a city that has been turned around. There are terrific things happening in Buffalo, and a lot of that also has to do with Governor Cuomo. Governor Cuomo coming in and saying, I'm going to put the kind of attention on Western New York that it hasn't happened in the past. And of course that Senator Schumer has done the same from the Senate. So a lot of things came together. Buffalo is on the move like people haven't seen in 30, 40 years. Job creation, downtown development, people living back in the city, the whole region benefiting from it. And now this project, the Council family that developed the Walden Galleria Mall, when everybody told them then that that type of mall wouldn't work, and we had all these too many malls in Buffalo and it wasn't a good market, they came in and they are the number 11 in the country now in doing business.
Let's talk a little about that before we move on. So to take
Casey's management ability with a group like the Consuls, with their depth in retailing and development, is just so exciting for the area and so exciting for the city and the region. And I think I know that Byron will miss Steve Casey, but he will continue to be a successful mayor, and he will continue to run and manage the city in a proficient way. And it was really time. Steve spent nearly 30 years in government. He's got a young family, and one thing about government is you can get a lot done, but you know, anybody who thinks that they're going to be able to have business success and make money in government shouldn't be in government. So I think he felt it was time that he think about his family and move into the private sector.
Real quick then about the Conjal development. Sure. They want to take the old Seneca Mall, and of course his name was being discussed in association with Tom Golisano, who you're also very allied to, about maybe perhaps building not only the new mall or a new development there, but moving our football stadium there.
Well, I think it's obviously a candidate for that, but we're separating the projects because who knows what can happen with that, and we know that the Seneca project makes sense to go forward, so we're going to separate that. But by the same token, it is a tremendous site for a stadium, especially with the ingress-egress right off of the 90, 219, 400, 190. They all come together in the same place. You can move people in and out of there in 20 minutes, you know, after game time. So it's a tremendous area, and the Conjals are the people to bring it to be a multi-purpose, multi-use stadium, not just used 10, 12 times a year. Now, I think Tom Golisano has expressed that he wants to do a bid, and I think Scott Conjal may do a bid.
Are they going to do a bid together?
Well, not at this point, but that, you know, I think that Tom wants to bid separately. Scott wants to bid separately. Remember, there's two different viewpoints. I mean, the Conjals look at this bid as also a real estate play and a stadium play, where Tom is looking at just the team. So they have two different philosophies on how to bid. And Tom, I think, clearly has expressed in the past that he had an opportunity to bring partners into the Sabres and didn't. You know, Tom has been a tremendously successful person in his life. We've had him here on the show with you, John.
Right.
And you know, I think his concern is he doesn't want the Bills to leave Buffalo. If he can help stop that, he will.
Well, I read that in a Toronto newspaper, you know, and perhaps you were engaged in that story where he said,
no, I wasn't, but I'm sure they know more than me.
He said, I'm kind of in it to get this team, no matter what it takes, was basically the gist of the story.
Yeah,
is he really going to do whatever it takes to get the Buffalo Bills?
I can't speak for Tom Golisano, and I don't know where that story came from. I do tell you that he's a strong business guy with a bright mind. He's been successful at anything he's touched. He has a Midas touch when it comes to business, and has been successful in all areas of life. He just got engaged to a wonderful woman, Monica Seles, who the tennis player. He's got all kinds of interests. What he did say he wants to do, though, is if he can be party to keeping the Bills in Buffalo, and that he wants to try to do that. As to anything else that he's thinking or how far he'd go, I think you'd have to ask him.
Well, and hopefully we will be able to do that, and we'll rely on you hopefully for that connection. Let's shift gears a little bit and talk about another major political story, and I want to bring in a guest who's on the phone, Carl Calabrese, who was former Deputy Erie County Executive from 2000 to 2005. He's now with a political consulting firm with former Mayor Anthony Masiello and other notables. Carl, you're on the phone, and the announcement earlier this week from New York State Senator George Maziarz that he's not going to seek re-election. I had heard you on WBEN radio. You likened it to a political bombshell. Weigh in on what you think of this.
Well, it certainly was a shocker to everyone. We immediately got on the phone and began to call some of our Republican friends in Albany and different staffers to see if anyone saw this coming, and the answer across the board was no. So it was a bombshell. It was a bolt out of the blue. It was all of the above. But certainly big news and major news in terms of the political landscape of Western New York.
Now, he had mentioned that he said he's tired, had spent decades in office, but I have to say it's hard not to think that this might be a reaction to two of his aides resigning, seeking legal counsel, and an investigation by the Manhattan District Attorney, or an attorney in Manhattan rather, is saying that some campaign funds were not spent properly. How do you respond to that?
Well, John, as I said on some of the other media outlets, I prefer to stick with things we know as opposed to speculation. I think, you know, there's always time to talk in the future if what's being speculated on actually comes into reality. But, you know, what we know now is that a few months ago, City and State magazine published an article saying that the Moreland Commission had found unitemized expenses with Maziarz account. At that time, the senator said that no one from the Moreland Commission had ever contacted him, interviewed him, asked him for records, and that he, in his opinion, his campaign expenditures and reporting met both the spirit and the letter of the law. That's what he said. Now we know also that the Moreland Commission was disbanded, and the U.S. Attorney from Manhattan, a gentleman named Preet Bharara, has taken it up and is asking questions, including former staffers of the senators. How long that investigation will go, what it will produce, those are all unknowns, and I think we'd be very foolish to speculate on what might come of it. I think it's fair to say, though, that, and Steve would probably agree, every politician reaches their shelf life in office when it just isn't fun anymore. And maybe that the combination of having been in office since the late 80s, the idea of running a campaign, the idea of going back to Albany as a state senator, and dealing with an investigation that could go on for months, if not years, that may have been enough to have him say, enough, I'm going to concentrate on my family and getting this investigation behind me. I don't know. That is speculation on my part. I feel safe doing that, but I won't speculate on what the Manhattan U.S. Attorney from Manhattan might find or will find. I have no idea.
You mentioned Steve Pigeon, and Steve, you're here. What is your reaction to this with the investigation, the announcement he's not running again, the aides who've left? Well,
I would say, having spent, I think it's again no secret, that we worked together, especially on the change in the New York State Senate in 2009, and I knew him to be a very, very hard worker and a very, very smart politician, and a very effective for Western New York when he chose to play the role as a senior leader. I do know that just from private conversations I even had him at that time, that he was even saying then, this is getting a little tiring, this back and forth, and he would talk privately more than people would realize, that it's been 16 years, it's been 18 years. So I think that's certainly a factor in it. You can't discount the fact, though, that we had been hearing, Carl, as you know, rumblings during the Moreland Commission that they were looking at his campaign finances. There had been talk about people subpoenaed weeks before that the announcement even came, or the word came that his staff had resigned. There had been talk for weeks that subpoenas, there was even crazier rumors than that going around. So there was a little bit of smoke there, and I tend not to overreact to those things, because you hear those rumors all the time, and 9 out of 10 times it turns out not to be true. Well, but obviously the fact that they have defense lawyers, there's clearly an investigation going on, that might add to the feeling of that I've had enough of this, and I think he deserves a chance to defend himself before anybody can say that he did or did not do anything. But from a political standpoint, it's a bombshell in terms of the mistake that was made 2 years ago by Senator Maziarz and Senator Skelos, is they felt that in order to save Senator Grzani, that they would change these districts around. They put more Democrats into that district and made it now and I even said on this show at that time that that's a mistake, because they actually put more Democrats into Ransenhofer, Gallivan, and into Maziarz, and they've made those districts, when those men move, and as they always will, there's always change in politics, they've made those more competitive districts. I think it was a mistake in the redistricting. They may pay for it now. It's going to be very difficult for the Republicans to hang on to the Senate this year. And I know it goes into Monroe County. I want to stop you right there, Steve. Carl Calabrese, stay on the phone, because I want to talk about in the next segment, which will be a little bit shorter because we took up some time here, who might be the next individual to run, whether the Republicans may lose some mojo in Albany, all of that and more when Political Buzz continues right after this. No question that the announcement that New York State Senator George Maziarz, Republican from Newfane, not going to seek re-election, certainly major news covered by the Buffalo News, all the major media outlets. Carl Calabrese, political consultant and political insider, is on the line on the phone. Joining us, of course, Steve Pigeon here in studio. Carl, name the individual who is going to step up and try to take this position, and what kind of luck do you think that individual is going to have?
Well, it looks like it's going to be the mayor of the city of North Tonawanda, Mayor Rob Ort. Very sharp young guy, a veteran, a captain in the U.S. Army, served in Iraq, has won election and re-election in North Tonawanda, which is has a plurality of Democrat enrolled voters. So he's proven he can get voters from to come across the lines to vote for him. He's a very attractive candidate, and although the district is slightly more Democrat in enrollment, you've got a large independent voting bloc, which will be crucial. And it is a non-presidential year, a good year for Republicans to run. I think he will have the advantage of the Niagara County political infrastructure and George Maziarz's political infrastructure and organization.
Well, that's interesting you say that, Carl, because first off, it's Governor Cuomo's running too, and he has a commanding lead. So I think that in a district that's already Democratic, that favors the candidate. The Democrats are running is John Destino, who is a young lawyer, a member of the Niagara Falls School Board. I also think that district is really more Niagara Falls East because it goes all the way to Monroe, and North Tonawanda is kind of an outlier in that district. George Maziarz even moved, native of North Tonawanda, moved to Newfane because as a political bright person as he is, he knew he wanted to be in the center of that district. But when you say the Maziarz organization, well, I think from a legal and professional and personal standpoint, you have to take the senator at his word and give him his time to make his defense. From a political standpoint, look what's happened in Niagara County. You've had three close allies, the mayor of Lockport, the supervisor of town of Niagara, the supervisor of Lewiston, all have to resign in scandal and actually been indicted and actually now in various stages have been sentenced. And so they have to ask the question whether that organization that was solely run by Senator Maziarz, he was known as King George, whether there's a taint on that organization. So even a young man like Ort coming out of that organization, I don't think is going to be there as it was in the past because there's a cloud over it, and that is going to resonate throughout Niagara County. So I think it's going to be a close race regardless. And I think young Testino, young Ort, it's nice to see young guys involved. They're going to have to go fight it out at the doors. But no one, I don't think, can rely on an organization that has, in this last year, been shocked by 3 resignations and now 1 withdrawal. I would say that Republican organization is in trouble.
Carl, how do you respond?
I live in Niagara County. I'm very familiar with the Niagara County Republican organization. It is a very formidable organization, despite these problems and issues that occurred at the local levels. There's still an awful lot of very good strategists, tacticians there who are at the top of their game. They're very good at raising money. And the bottom line is Rob Ort will stand as Rob Ort. And all these other things on the side that guys like Steve and I know about and are concerned about, the bottom line is people are going to vote for a new senator, and they're going to look at the 2 candidates, and they're going to look at their records, and they're going to look at their positions, and that's what's going to drive the election. And as far as I'm concerned as a Republican, we could not find a better person to step into this race than Mayor Rob Ort. And let's see what happens in November.
Well, Carl, I don't think he can be divorced from where he was spawned, which was an organization that is facing investigations and these past indictments.
Let's talk a little bit about investigations. Carl, you've been in politics a long time. Steve, you as well. You're no stranger to investigations.
Well, I've had a Democratic commissioner that investigates me every year for 10 years, and nothing ever comes of any of it. So it's politics, and that's why I'm saying.
So in saying that, if nothing's ever come of it, why did George Maziarz decide not to run? Do you think he needed to wait this out? But what I wasn't talking about the Senator Maziarz. I was talking about 3 executives that are integral to that organization, that Republican organization in Niagara County, who have resigned over scandal. That I have not said that George Maziarz has done anything wrong. Right. I don't think that's ever been shown. Nope. And I take him at his word. I knew him when we were friends that he was getting tired of that ride. So I take him at his word. But I'm talking about those resignations, and now without Senator Maziarz there, who was a tremendously smart strategic politician, I don't think you could just assume the vaulted Republican organization is there. But investigations happen. They happened. Carl, you were part of an organization, a deputy county executive, that there was a lot of investigations going on there under Joel Giambra, and of course nothing ever came of them. So that is a fact of life.
But they do, but Steve, they do take a lot of time and mental energy to deal with when you're there.
Yes, it does, and that's why I think somebody like Maziarz, who was already saying I probably have my, a lot of years there, may not wanted to have to try to campaign, try to govern, and try to fight those allegations.
Do you think this was a politically motivated piece?
Well, he clearly politically, he knew weeks ago that he was, and many people have done it, where they run the petitions and they know they may withdraw, and this way it keeps other candidates from running. So I think he knew weeks ago what he was going to do and kept it privately. But there's a lot of races here, John. I mean, besides that Niagara County race, this race between Betty Grant and Tim Kennedy is one to watch. I think that Tim Kennedy has been a tremendous senator, and as long as he gets his turnout out in South Buffalo and Cheektowaga, and he has the mayor's organization supporting him on the east side of Buffalo, I think you're going to see him do well. But we know it was a close race last time. Will be a close race this time. And then the fight in the Buffalo in the Crystal Peoples District being challenged by Antoine Thompson. I don't think Crystal's anywhere near her shelf life. But I think a lot of people realize the good that she's done in this community and that she's doing for the city of Buffalo. She's now finally at a point where she's in leadership in Albany and really can start cooking with gas. But you're going to see a race there. So there's some very interesting races developing here for us locally.
Carl, I want to thank you for joining us on the phone to talk about the Maziarz issue. I know that in weeks to come we'll find hopefully more time for you to participate, hopefully here in the studio. And
I'd like to see you in person, Carl.
Next time, hey, John, if I got a second to go, I just want to remind Steve that if we're talking scandals, the last time the Democratic Party controlled the state Senate between 2009 and 2011, if I recall, Steve, 3 or 4 of its leaders were indicted and convicted, and I'm sure if we're going to talk scandals, Rob Ork might want to remind voters.
But on both sides, Carl, because that's why I said he does. You know, I haven't made any judgment about that. I'm talking about local supervisors and executives that have been convicted, indicted, and convicted. But you're right. In the state Senate, it's happening on both sides. Tom Libous, a wonderful senator, was a terrific senator. He was just indicted. Democrats on that side were indicted. Of course, the last time in the state Senate, I was involved with George Maziarz. So, yeah, there's been a lot of people on both sides indicted here, and I think it's a tough time for New York State politics.
How the candidates stand on issues and how the voters judge them, because it's a two-edged sword. Neither party is clear of scandals and indictments and convictions. That's why these candidates will stand on their own, on their records, and on their vision and on their position on issues. That will decide the race.
Gentlemen,
well, we disagree on that, Carl. But
gentlemen, I'll have to leave it right there. Carl, I do hope to see you soon, and good luck to you, and say hi to Anthony Massiello and the rest of your associates.
Take care. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Political Buzz will be back. We'll have a few remaining minutes right after this. Join the conversation at WBBZ on Twitter. You can like us on Facebook. We are your hometown television station. Steve Pigeon, thanks for joining us.
My pleasure.
Here on the show. And I didn't see you at the Taste of Buffalo recently, but I did see close to 10,000 of our hometown television fans. They stopped by what we declared now WBBZ Park inside Niagara Square with our Hot Shot Football Challenge. It was great to see literally almost 500,000 people come to Western New York. Earlier in the show, Steve, you talked about the resurgence and the renaissance of Buffalo. An event like the Taste of Buffalo really accents that positivity. I did see Mayor Brown there. We took a selfie, and we had some fun. And we do wish the mayor well as he continues to rebuild the city with his staff. We were happy to be there. Our next big event will be the Erie County Fair. Will be coming up in August. Maybe, Steve, we'll see you at the fair. It's the 175th fair.
I do bring my little nephews and nieces to the fair every year. So
good. And you know, as we discussed earlier with politics and the stories we couldn't get to, that's why we're on the air, and we're going to keep reinventing the show, and we'll have you back along with others. So
thank you. Thanks
for joining us. Thanks to Carl Calabrese for joining us, talking about the issue with the New York State Senator George Maziarz, and thank you for watching. Right now, Thursday mornings at 9 and Sunday mornings at 11, right here on WBBZ-TV. We'll see you next time, everybody. Thanks.